Hi guys, and welcome back to Let's Build Hemburg. So last episode we did a lot of the kind of bigger buildings, such as the barracks that we've got here on an angle. We also built the church, which is behind it. So that's the Order of the Thundercross, the second religion that we've got going on inside of Hemburg, along with the kind of druidic, more Celtic style religion that we've got. And of course, we spent quite a bit of time working on the arena. So this episode, what we're going to be building, and kind of like building up, is we're going to be doing a bridge going across the river, which is on the north, kind of like the north side of it. I'm also going to be building a couple of buildings kind of outside of the city itself, and doing a little bit more detail around the actual landscape. So the idea being behind this bridge is that there was an original bridge which was made out of wood, which went across this river. This river is the kind of main boundary for the Hemlands, which is where Hemburg is situated. And this is actually a river that used to have a big crossing across it with made out of just wood, and that would be where all the trade would come into the Hemlands. Now there is another way into the Hemlands. There's a couple extra routes, but they're a lot less direct, so this was more the trade route, the main route that would go along. Now when Calandria came in, and they actually invaded the Hemlands and Aurelia, they built this bigger bridge made out of stone, which is why it's a slightly different architecture, and also a different building material than what we've been doing before, which of course with Hemburg we've been going very wood-based, bits of stone on the bottom, but not overly, not loads and loads of stone. However, with Calandria, they're more of an empire, so this was a way to actually stop people from getting into the Hemlands and for them to actually control trade. Now, as you can see, we've also got a drawbridge on this, so this can actually be lifted up, and that's to allow boats to actually pass underneath it. So it can be lifted up and boats can go through, only smaller boats of course, but they can still make it across. So you can see me adding in all the different details. Adding lots of different patterns and things like that onto this. I'm quite happy with how it turned out in the end. Now you can just see me detailing up the sides of this using the vertical slabs quite heavily. What I wanted to do with these is make them very sloped on either side as it touches the water. So obviously this is now under the control of Hemburg, but they haven't taken down the bridge because it is actually quite a sturdy and well-built bridge. However, what I am planning on doing later on with some of the places that were under the control of Calandria is we're actually going to have them a bit destroyed or taken apart, or maybe they've been deconstructed in order to build normal houses, which does happen sometimes in history. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually building a ramp going down, obviously using the orange wall and using orange wall slabs to mark the path going down. So I wanted this going obviously down a slope, but I also wanted it to go at an angle. And I tried to get the arches to work with angles as well, and actually slope them down, which looks quite interesting, I think. Now moving out onto this kind of outside area, which is outside of the bridge. I really wanted to build this area up just a little bit, not too much, but with a couple like little farming buildings and things like that. And this one is actually a pig stable, or kind of like a pig farm. So this is where they would obviously breed pigs and then sell them on to the butcher, who would then be able to obviously cut them up into the right strips and sell them on from there. So it's a really simple little building using the same style that we've already got. It's got a small kind of extension onto the side of it, and these have double doors on either side, which allows the pigs to actually go in and sleep. Next up is something that you guys suggested on one of my live streams, and that was to build a stables outside the city. I've got one on the other side, but a lot smaller and less detailed. This one is going to be more of like almost like a horse breeder type stable area. And with the way that the rocks worked here, this was really good to be able to kind of make this a natural enclosure, so we can actually have like a bit of a field where they can go and wander in. And then you've actually got the stables themselves on there, and I've also built like almost like a little granary area where they'd store up hay and things like that to obviously feed the horses. Now, one of the things I wanted to do as well is put in a small pond. I just thought it would be a nice little detail that we could just add into there. Now, next thing that kind of looked a bit barren between the between the pig farm and also the stables. It just looked really, really barren. So what I decided to do is build like a small barn, really, really small barn, and also a field with cabbages in it, and also obviously the weeds. What they would do is they would give the weeds to the pig farmers. So it's like a shared small farm that's owned or co-owned by the horse breeders and also the pig farmers as well. And now what I'm doing is just building an under construction house as well. Just putting that in as a little bit of detail. Another thing that was mentioned on the stream was that you guys wanted to see, or thought it'd be really good to actually have somewhere where we can have like some little docks for fishing. So I decided to build this little fishing hut. This is based off of another one of those Dante 78's designs. So he's got some on Renderosity. They look really, really good. So I've then kind of adapted that style of building to the kind of row hand style that we've kind of got for Hemburg. And another thing that was mentioned on the stream is you guys want to see more angled buildings. So a really, really nice little simple hut that's just at a very basic angle that we've got out here. So this has, again, a very, very small farm because it's outside the city. We can do these tiny little farms, and we've got some turnips just growing. And you can see just outside the fishing hut as well, we're building a small area where we've got some fish just hanging up. Then of course they'd be sold by the merchant in the actual city, so they can get sold on, or this guy fishes and then brings them up. So you can now see me just detailing up the paths and building that all the way up, using the snow layers to the entrance. Another thing I really want to do is, and I was looking at the actual terrain and just thinking it looks a bit empty, so I started to add in some bigger stones, and especially on this Riverside part of it, I wanted to add in some elven ruins. Of course the elves did kind of own almost all the land that was around here at one point in time, so we've actually got some elven ruins there. And just a bit lower down on the kind of Riverside, I've got a small burnt out house. Now if you guys have any ideas of a story behind this, of how it got burnt and who burnt it and who actually used to live there, that'd be really cool to add into the lore. Now you can see me adding in these stones. I think it really starts to add in a lot of detail to the actual terrain. It is going to be a pain to do all the way along it, but I think it is worth it. And you can see me also adding in some bits of dirt and bits of bushes as well, which I think really brings the actual terrain alive. It makes it look a lot more interesting, as well as using the conquest plants, but also the leaves. Really basic technique, but I think it looks great. Now I'm just smoothing out the walls as well on the outside while we've kind of got this in the background. Just using the vertical slabs again and moving on to this and just building it up, and it looks a lot smoother and a lot nicer now. Now moving on to the inside of the actual city walls this time. Building an inn, so that was another one that was mentioned on the stream, and I decided to do this at a bit of a weird angle. I'm not sure if I got the angle quite right, but I've gone with it anyway. It's just quite a basic, simple structure. We've got a circular kind of, almost like a tower on the back of it, which you can't really see, but the idea of that is that it's going to have the stairway, so it's going to have a circular stairway, which gets you up to the upper floors of the inn. And you can see me just adding in a little bits of detail. We've also got on the side a small stables, so if you do have a horse, then and you come to stay in Hemburg, you can then actually have your horse. You've got a nice place for the horse to live. Now behind all of this, another mention was that we're going to have possibly have a small marketplace type area. So I've built a small blacksmith, really small blacksmith. And then we've also got a potter in the back here, so they will be making the actual pots. So all I've got is a small chair and a pot in front of them, and later on I added in a kiln behind this. We've got a greengrocer, of course, because you always need food. So you can see the kiln just being added in there. And then the next thing I'm going to build is a candle maker. So the design that's actually at the back that you can't see of how the candles are actually made is by Triliton. I saw it on Twitter and it looks awesome, so I've used that kind of design, which is basically rope hanging down. Also using things like the frost layer as well to make it look like there's like wax that's actually melted or hardening. Then we've also got a fabric maker. So we've got some fabrics on show in this fancier tent. Now behind the inn, another thing that was mentioned was to have like warehouses and granaries. Since the Calandrian Empire kind of invaded, they've stocked up on a lot more of these, so that there is a store of food behind the walls. We've got some very, very simple little warehouses just behind it, and also a very small granary. So this is a little bit of a different design. I quite like it though. So this is just obviously store up grain and things like that just behind the city walls. And then this part on the side here, just building a small little garden. Now, one of the things that was also mentioned on one of my live streams was with the Mages Guild to actually build a herb garden. I did say I'd do this on the time-lapse, so small herb garden using the wattle fence, which I really, really like the 3D model version of that. And then just adding in different herbs and trying to make it look quite varied. I'm really, really happy with how that actually turned out as well. So here we go. You can see the bridge. You can see the small kind of like fishing docks there, the elven ruins behind there. I have got custom NPCs now installed, so I have started to add different people into the actual world. You can also see that small angled hut. We've got obviously behind it the pig farm, the stables, that small farm that's kind of joint, as well as obviously the burnt house further down the river and the under construction angled house. I'm really happy with the terrain and how that looks. And then behind the city walls, we've got the inn, the granary, we've got the warehouses, and we've got all of those small little market stalls. So guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this episode of Let's Build Hemburg. If you have, comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.